Dr. Venkat Raman, professor at the Indian Institute of Management, and with him we go from Russia to China. Our panelist completed his doctoral studies at the Beijing's University School of Governments. He's recently been in the US creating a postgraduate and doctoral course at George Mason University on the China Challenge, and he's been a visiting fellow at the BRICS Center at Fudan University in Shanghai. He recently co-edited a book called Locating BRICS in the Global Order, Perspectives from the Global South. What are those perspectives? Where is BRICS and India? Venkat Raman, tell us what you know.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Huxley, and thanks to Democracy Forum for inviting me for this very, very important event. So, I will take on from where you just made your introduction with the earlier speaker. So the lack of consensus in BRICS towards the Iran conflict and how it has emboldened critics and skeptics alike. Well, India's presidency comes at a time when the world was already entering into a very, very critical phase in January 2026 because of Trump's tariffs. But the current Iran conflict has added insult to injury. So to understand, India's position, one needs to put this year's theme in perspective. And this year's theme is, quote unquote, building for resistance, innovation, cooperation, and sustainability. So India's, stand towards BRICS has to be understood from this lens. So to begin with, Indian Premier's call of humanity first approach has to be focused. So India has made it very clear that it wants to lay down a roadmap for BRICS, which will be number one, in accordance with its strategic autonomy by pursuing multi-alignment strategy. And two, it will use this opportunity to bolster its credentials as leader of the global South. Now, how will it do so? So I will try to, put India's perspective by basically calling what I would say three pillars of India's, leadership in this year of presidency, BRICS presidency. Number one, the first pillar is India is all for economic pragmatism over ideology. So to give an example, let's take the case of how India is, spearheading and championing the cause of digital leadership. So this digital leadership, India is pushing big time to link central bank digital currencies and linking them with the UPIs across the BRICS nations. So making CBDCs, this is the central bank digital currencies and UPI interoperability, a core pillar of BRICS cooperation. India is adopting a policy of economic pragmatism. India doesn't want to create an alternative order, but it wants to create a system which will be upholding the sovereignty of the countries, and yet at the same time, it's a decentralized system. So India is, unlike China, not out there to make a big deal out of this whole de-dollarization thing. India wants to take it slow, and India doesn't want to rock the, India is going to, lead BRICS in its, by going for a policy which is non-confrontational. The second important thing where India's leadership is coming to the fore is how India has called for the health first approach. So India is offering its India stack, which is the Aadhaar and the UPI and the health stack as an open source model for other BRICS countries. So India's leadership is to further expand the BRICS Vaccine R&D Center. The BRICS Vaccine R&D Center was first proposed by South Africa, but actually it was India which operationalized this. So India is proposing linking the vaccine center with the digital public infrastructure, use digital platforms to manage vaccine distribution. So India is now keen to ensure that this center evolves from a reactive pandemic tool to a proactive digital first health infrastructure, from global South perspective. So this is the first pillar. The second pillar, is how India is batting for reformed multilateralism and sustainability, which is one of the most important themes in this year, comes out to the fore here. India is going to use the BRICS platform to voice the global South interests. So, for example, BRICS basically, the Indian Premier Mr. Narendra Modi has said that BRICS is a non-West, entity and not anti-West entity. What does this mean? What it means is that India believes that in the case of sustainability, the cause of climate justice is a moral duty. So India's argument is that developed nations' climate action cannot be separated from the developmental equity, concerns of the global south. India argues that while the West measures climate change in numbers, India views it through certain values and rituals. India rejects climate mandates that would penalize growth of emerging economies. Uh, Further, India also argues for tech transfer and affordable finance for so that the sustainability alternatives are adopted in a way which is within the reach of the global south. It should be accessible and affordable as well. India has, I have already mentioned in the beginning, that India is out there to safeguard its own interests and yet at the same time, pursue what is its multi alignment strategy. So, strategic autonomy is a third pillar. So, India wants to pursue its national interests, but at the same time, it wants to deepen its ties with all the countries. It's a multi directional strategy. So, for example, the recent UN resolution was co-sponsored, condemning Iran's action against the GCC countries. And although Iran is a member of BRICS Plus, but India did not fall short of, acting as a leader, which is concerned about what Iran was doing in the GCC countries. Having said that, has not fallen shy of, the Indian leadership at the topmost level has reached out to the topmost Iranian leadership even during such critical times. And both the sides have been, having constructive dialogue, which means that through this, although India is showing its leadership, India is co-sponsoring the resolution in the United Nations. India is also capable and confident of safeguarding its own national interests because its energy interests are very much at stake because of the current conflict. And to be fair, the results are pretty not very satisfying, but pretty acceptable as of now. So, what I would like to conclude, is India's focus is to engineer ways in which BRICS evolves as consensus-based platform that delivers tangible development goals. India looks at BRICS as not a geopolitical alignment. It looks at it as a situational alignment where India can use its soft balancing strategy and multi-alignment strategy at the same time. So India, to conclude, looks at its role as pragmatic, its role as a pragmatic adapter in an otherwise complex world order. So I would stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Venkataraman. That was very interesting. Could I ask you the same question that I asked Ambassador Bhatia? Is that as a non-Western organization grouping of countries and looking for reform in international institutions, the pushback against that reform from those who control those institutions, how damaging is it? How real is it?
Well, the pushback will always be there. It is always a kind of a tug of war between the status quo and the anti-status quo. But given the fact that today BRICS comprises 35% of global GDP and 45% of the global population, there is a limit to which this pushback is possible. And given the fact that we are in a world whereby economic globalization is here to stay, no matter the fragmented world order talks and all that, the world is not going to deglobalize suddenly. There is a certain degree of path dependence to the economic globalization that has taken place. And the Western interests are very much at stake when it comes to whatever is happening in this part of the world, especially India and China. So whatever India and China say, sooner or later, it might be a hesitant given, but that hesitant given has to be there sooner or later. That's how I look at it.
So could I give you a question from Ritesh Nigam on your Pacific expertise? How might India use its presence in BRIC to ensure the bloc does not become a China-led anti-Western alliance?
Well, one of the main objectives of India is actually to use BRICS as a platform to check, the China factor. So therefore, if you look at India's policy and China's policy towards BRICS, there is interesting difference. So for example, if you look at how China looks at the pace of expansion of BRICS. So China is very keen to expand BRICS as early as possible so that it can, engineer a bloc which is openly rivaling the Western bloc. But India is very, very cautious. India says, no, let us wait and watch. Let us go slow. Let us not, try to get things in a hurry because of its multi-alignment strategy. So the pace of expansion. Number two, if you look at the geopolitical tone when it comes to China's stand on BRICS and India's stand on BRICS, that also is different. So therefore, China wants to steer BRICS to a pronouncedly anti-West, counter-US, and G7. But India is saying that we are non-West, but we are not anti-West. So therefore, India wants to maintain ties with both North and the South. If you look at therefore these are some of the differences which India has with China when it comes to operationalization of BRICS. And this year, India is going to try to give as much of a non-political push and leadership so that it is not perceived as an anti-West bloc.
And within the BRICS membership, the wider membership, now you have some anti-Western governments. You have Russia, you have Iran, you have others there, and then you have India, who's very neutral. How does BRICS divide up between being non-Western, pro-Western, and anti-Western?
Yeah, I think you see, that is something which is a part and parcel of international diplomacy today, isn't it? So India is a part of Quad, which actually counters China, but India is part of BRICS, which doesn't say we are against the US, but it's a tacit thing. It's a tacit thing that this is an anti-US led West kind of a bloc. So therefore, India is civilizationally a country which has always been very, very adept at managing contradictions. We are a polytheistic society, being a Hindu civilization. We are comfortable with Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma, and so many gods and goddesses. So we in the West, multi-directional strategy, we sit very comfortably with that. It might look as something which is very complex for others, but it comes quite well.
That's one of managing contradiction. So, and we in the West, with this thing, either you're with us or against us, which is a US mantra, we're less good at managing those contradictions.
I believe so, because India, because of its diversity and its civilizational past, we are divided not by castes, but subcastes and communities and so many other factors, languages. So India has, crossed along pretty well despite all the diversity. So I think unity in diversity is our strength, and that comes out of our ability to manage contradictions better than others.
I wonder how much that can seep throughout the whole of BRICS, the skill at managing contradictions.